Hey, what is up guys? Welcome to another video. I'm currently in Iceland in this cute cabin in the middle of nowhere. And on this trip I challenged myself to shoot a travel video just on my phone. And I want to take you guys with me and see how I did it. It's a simple tool and I just used a few apps for this. But let's watch the video first and then analyze it after. So first I have to say I have the iPhone 11, so that's a pretty new phone, and if you shoot with a different phone you might get a different quality of the footage. But I recorded videos on my iPhone in the past and it didn't quite turn out when I color graded it, so I decided to use an app for this and I came across the Moment app. It's a camera lens company that makes lenses for mobile phones. So first of all, I gotta say I'm not sponsored by Moment. I just wanted to try out the app and see how it performs. And I also wanted to say I didn't have a lot of time testing out the app beforehand. So I downloaded the app when it was just in Iceland and it was just very intuitive, and yeah, it really worked well for me. And there's also the Filmic Pro app, which was, I think it's the most advanced film app you can have on your iPhone. And I used the Moment app because it's a little cheaper and I just wanted to try it out. I will try out the Filmic Pro app eventually because there's some stuff I don't like about the Moment app. But let's jump into the app and let's see what it can do. So the main reason I use the app is that you can enter your settings manually. So if I'm shooting just on my phone and I'm just hitting record, I can just like auto exposure, and I mean I could adjust it a little bit, but it will change throughout the video. So what I want to do, especially that's really important, that you have a fixed exposure and you can really dial in those settings that you want. And the second reason I did that was I wanted to have a flatter profile. So I'm not sure how they do that, but it feels like they have like a filter that takes out the contrast and the saturation. So I'm working with a flatter image, and what this does is it gives me more freedom in post to really get the colors right to the way I want it. And those two things the app does really well, but there's also a few things that I don't like. For example, I get these weird, sometimes I get this weird glittering in the sky. It's like it's somehow, even though the exposure doesn't change for the whole image, sometimes the highlights were flickering and stuff like that, so I don't know what the reason is, if it's a bug or if it's something else, or I didn't do the settings right, because I have very limited time to actually look at the app in depth. And the third thing I actually use this app for is the time lapse, because it adds motion blur to when I do a hyperlapse. And this is really helpful because it gives your image a more cinematic look if there's motion blur added to right in from the app, so you don't have to do it in post. The app does it for you. So it's almost 12 o'clock here in Iceland, and as you can see it's still light out, and I'm taking advantage of the long days here, and I'm just currently shooting a time lapse on my phone. And I'm using the Moment app, which is a little helper that adds motion blur, and it's way easier to capture time lapses on your phone, so I really recommend using it. And what I do is just I look for places that look interesting, like mountains and everything. And then it's nice to have some clouds going over the mountains. So if you want to shoot a time lapse, it's not good if there's no clouds, because you want to have the movement in. And it's also nice to shoot during sunsets because the lights change. And what I'm doing is I'm just dialing in the settings on my phone that I want, and I'm adding motion blur, adding 2, which gives it a nice little feel to it. And then because the clouds are moving, and it's nice to have some motion blur on the clouds. And I'm just pressing record, and then it just is a waiting game. I'm currently, because the clouds are not moving that fast, I'm shooting at like every 5 seconds or 8 seconds. 8 seconds is a photo, so because they're not moving too fast, you can have a longer interval. So I'm just waiting here and enjoying the sunset. I mean, there could be worse places to shoot a time lapse. I also tried to create some hyperlapses, which is basically a time lapse with the movement. So you want to have a specific subject in mind or a nice little line you're following, and then you want to hold the phone really steady and just move towards that subject. And the motion blur adds a little nice touch to it from the Moment app, but I feel like this would be a good way to have like external accessories like a gimbal to have it really steady, because it was a little shaky. Like if you look at the hyperlapses, it's a little jittery, and I really would have liked to make it look a little more smoother with a gimbal, but no accessories allowed in this video, just the bare phone, and I feel like it looks acceptable. So the next thing I'm doing, I'm going into time-lapse mode again, and what's usually cool is if you shoot a hyperlapse, which is like a moving time-lapse. And how I'm doing this is I'm just holding the phone against my screen here, obviously not while I'm driving, I have someone drive. And what I'm doing is I'm just holding it and shooting a time-lapse, and I'm just moving towards a nice road. Like now it's really moody out and I feel like the clouds are moving in, so I'm just holding my phone really steady towards the screen, and I'm just letting it go, and it just like creates this nice hyperlapse. And then the added motion blur, which automatically does add in the app, is really helpful and it looks really cool. But when it comes to exporting those time lapses, there's also always some crashing of the app, and then it didn't load real well. So the export function of those time lapse is not the best and can be like a little bit more improved. But overall, this app is really great. I think it's $6 Canadian, or is it €6? It's a few bucks. I think it's around $5, and it's good if you want to record stuff on your phone and you want to get the most out of your footage. So I really can recommend it, especially for iPhone. I think they discontinued the support for Android. So if you have an iPhone, that's a really cool, cheap app, and you can get really nice results from your iPhone. Another thing I would like to add is the camera of the iPhone has image stabilization turned on, like it's a digital stabilization. And when I was using the app, it was automatically turned off, so I had to do it in post. I mean, that's not a bad thing because it really worked out well with the warp stabilizer in Premiere Pro, but just keep in mind that you have to be extra steady when taking your shots from the iPhone. And another big reason I wanted to use the Moment app is that I wanted to have manual focus. When you create videos, you always want to have depth in the image. So I always kind of pulled off my phone, like there's some bushes and I want to pull out from the bushes into the landscape, and if I didn't have manual focus, the focus would rack from the closer subject to the far landscapes. I didn't want to have that, so I just wanted to set the focus to the landscapes, to the far point, and then I would just pull out and it would not rack the focus and would just stay on the subject that I wanted it on. And it's really easy to do. They're just like focus peaking. It's these green little dots, and you can just like, there's a wheel and you can adjust the focus, and it works really well for that. I also filmed everything in 4K 60 because I challenged myself not to use any other equipment, just my phone, no stabilizers, no gimbals, nothing, just the bare phone, no lenses. And in Iceland, it's really windy, so when you hold, even when you just hold the phone, it's like it blows, so it jitters a little bit. So I just wanted to be safe and shot everything in 4K 60. The iPhone 11 can do that. And yeah, it just gives me more room in post that I can make it more stable. And also the waterfalls look really nice in slow motion. I know slow motion is overused in travel videos, but when you just have your phone, sometimes it's the only option to get good footage that is smooth. So also for travel videos, it's good to have movement in. So I was moving my phone from left to right near the ground to get this depth into the image again. The foreground is moving faster than the background, and just moving it from left to right gives a nice little interesting touch to your images. And also what I did is I tried these crane shots where I moved from the bottom up, and they look really nice when you do it in slow motion and stabilize it in post. So yeah, there's a little post-production you have to do when you want to get these shots, but they look really nice when you've done it, and the outcome I'm really satisfied with. So I would say the most important thing when you shoot on your phone is you don't zoom in. So when you zoom in digitally, like if you punch in with your fingers, it creates this image which is not usable because it's so grainy and the resolution drops a lot. Even if you shoot in 4K, it didn't work for me, and I feel like this is the part where some lenses are necessary. If you have like a iPhone 11 Pro, it has a zoom lens, or even there's some camera lenses. I think Moment also does a few lenses that are more telephoto. So if you want to have a more punched in look, you should go for lenses, or have the iPhone 11 Pro that has a zoom lens, but just don't punch in with your fingers digitally. It just doesn't look great. And this is the biggest issue for me when shooting on the phone, is you want to have a variety of shots in your film. So, and if you just have the wide angle shots, I mean, it's nice for landscapes, but sometimes you want to have like a zoom in on a waterfall, and you can't really do that with your phone when you don't use any accessories. So this is the biggest drawback when just shooting on your phone, but luckily there's some workarounds when you actually use lenses and other gear with it. So that is it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm really enjoying the last few days here in Iceland. It's really cool what you can create with the tools you have in your pocket when you use them right, and you don't even need fancy equipment to create something cool. If you liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I see you guys in the next one.